I want to recognize and thank the Corporate Responsibility Association. We have a number of board members here, especially our immediate past chair, Jim Murrin. I said past chair, so if any of the CEOs here want to raise their hand right now, that would be great. Immediate past chair, Jim Murrin, CEO of MGM Resorts. He's sort of busy tonight because there's a thing in Vegas going on or something. Under Jim's leadership and the association, along with the talents of our executive director, Allie Williams. Allie, raise your hand, or there he is, right there. Allie Williams and the CRA Advisory Board, we've doubled membership, increased revenue, created exciting thought leadership councils, and we've literally educated hundreds, if not thousands, of engaged members. So I'd like to thank our table sponsors this evening, Hanes Brands, Mosaic Corporation, PVH Corporation, and St. Jude's Research Hospital, as well as the Corporate Responsibility Association. Now, as always, these events leave me feeling humbled to be in the presence of great talent and great vision. Nominees tonight have been lauded for their status and achievements as thinkers and strategists by many more erudite than me. But they are expected to be great thinkers and strategists. That's sort of their job. What impresses me most is their passion. They're bound together by their desire to give back to the community. Now, before we can recognize corporate social responsibility, we need to agree on its role. I think everyone here sort of has a sense of it, but what are the needs of society, and what is the state of our society today? I think it's interesting to discuss the very state of society. So the question is, on which social issues should companies focus their responsibility agendas? Well, maybe we first need to examine the myriad of problems. We hear in the mass media, the business media, and yes, the current presidential election, and no, I'm not endorsing any candidates. Though I will say that I am relieved, like most Americans, and I can announce here tonight with 100% reliability that one of these two will lose, and I feel good about that. All right, so, by the way, when I said I was going to make political jokes, my team all began working on their resumes, expecting that I would be hauled off the stage by an angry crowd at some point during the evening, and I am still hoping to get there. So, and some of you, Sue Marks, who's here, the CEO of Cielo, has sat through many politically incorrect speeches by me, as Terry's seen one before. So we're told we're at a crossroads that is dangerous, and we're striding close to the edge of a proverbial cliff, and it's difficult to see how we survive. There's doubt in our institutions, arguments over the role of government, disenchantment among today's youth, and finally a spiritual malaise that makes workers less motivated and more committed to leisure, to the great detriment of society. These are the things people are talking about. They're unique challenges, and I've arranged some interesting quotations to help us put the current social crises that we face in perspective, or the tipping point that we are at, and how really unique this moment is in history. So first, what's a tipping point? Malcolm Gladwell defined it in his book of that name as the magic moment when an idea or social behavior crosses the threshold, tips, and spreads like wildfire. Now, Gladwell in his book points to both positive and negative examples. Here in New York, they talked about the quote-unquote broken window theory. People who've lived here for a long time remember that dialogue about the broken window theory. Now, listening to the rhetoric, as people concerned for society and this talk, we'll focus primarily, by the way, on the United States. So I'm going to primarily look at U.S. society. We all work in global companies, but we're going to look at the U.S. And what we hear in the rhetoric is that we're facing this very dangerous tipping point, threats and very real threats, Let's go through them one by one. First, the role of government. This is a big issue. And in the wake of the Great Recession, people accused the government of being inefficient and intrusive. Here's a quote that sums it all up. That's actually from Warren Harding in 1920. So this issue of the business and government thing, it may not be all that new, okay? Of course, there was a pressing issue, and one that was very current, and that was the issue of capitalism versus socialism. That played out in the wake of the Bernie Sanders campaign, and the choice between a socialist or capitalist model is a big part of the current debate. So that's actually about 88 years old. This is a quote from Herbert Hoover's acceptance speech when he was running for president in 1928. So I'm not sure, do we really want Warren G. Harding or Herbert Hoover as spokespeople for anything? I mean, can we just agree as a country to never elect a president whose last name begins with H? I mean, that's the winnable argument. Like, so who can forget William Henry Harrison? Well, he was only president for 41 days, so the answer is everyone did. Any Gary Hart supporters here? How'd that work out for you guys, okay? H is a problem. So the tax issue, that's not necessarily new, but the arguments are new, such as this one. All right, so I'm sort of not seeing that as a particularly new argument either. We've been arguing about this for 95 years, and guess what? The world did not end. Well, at least one of the signature issues of the election cycle is pressing, and that is very much the issue of trade deals. Do we have the right trade policies? Oh, here we go again. This is from Henrique Hauser in Le Vivant Amérique in 1924. I'm sorry, L'Amérique Vivant. But it seems so modern, doesn't it? So perhaps the very issues facing society is society itself. So let's look at pressing social issues. Pressing social issues continue to be at the core of many debates, and many of these issues have been around, unfortunately, for far too long. And some, like the immigration policy, seem ripped from the headlines. America, right, has always been welcoming of immigration, and there's always been agreement on this until recently, right? Maybe not agreement. So the Johnson-Reed Act of 1924 was not a high point, and once again, 1920s. We're all this stuff's coming from the 1920s. Not a high point for America laying out the welcome mat, if you're familiar with the legislation. So the ongoing turmoil and racial animus that have spawned debate over law enforcement and criminal justice have gone on actually for far too long. While progress has been made, why wasn't this suggestion from 89 years ago enough to start the healing process? I think we all have to agree that America was a quilt, to borrow a metaphor from the Reverend Jesse Jackson after his own failed presidential bid. We all know that many diverse groups contributed to the overall fabric of this country. So at least we addressed gender equality by giving women the right to vote in 1920. That pretty much took care of everything, right? By the way, I love this picture. My grandmother is in this picture. So once women got the right to vote, everything was okay, right? It's all fixed. but women weren't really equal in all things. So they came up with the so-called Equal Rights Amendment, which was submitted to Congress in 1923. Never passed. Think about that. Languished before eventually being withdrawn from ratification on June 30th, 1982, 59 years later. One of the authors, by the way, of the Equal Rights Amendment, Crystal Eastman, and by the way, I'm actually not, like, I'm a moderate, so I'm in nobody's camp. Like, I'm too conservative for the Democrats who don't like me, and I'm too socially liberal for the Republicans who don't like me. So, so what happens to me is everyone asks me for money but criticizes me behind my back. That's how it plays, all right? So, I consider myself sort of, tonight talking about where we are. One of the authors of the Equal Rights Amendment, Crystal Eastman, went on to be one of the founders of the National Civil Liberties Board in 1920. They later changed their name to the ACLU, okay? Now, in spite of the progress that was achieved, and there was some, the issue of gender equality is nothing new. We just need to continue to move forward. Perhaps one of the backbones of cultural turmoil today is actually the issue of faith. And this is really boiled up in modern times. Religion and religious freedom are a central tenet of our democracy. Yet social change leads many of faith to feel under pressure as social mores change. Here's an example of one law that was supposed to destroy the very fabric of the institution of religion in America. And here we go again. We're back in 1925, the Scopes Monkey Trial. In 1925, the Scopes Monkey Trial and the idea of teaching religion occupied the headlines in America for weeks and was the first nationally broadcast radio event. A lot of people don't know that. The first time they actually broadcast something from coast to coast was actually the trial itself. Now, ironically, I'll just mention the defense attorney, the famous Clarence Darrow, was representing Scopes on behalf of the ACLU. So I guess Crystal Eastman got her day. In spite of the controversy, the American evangelical movement did not fall apart. And faith has continued to be an important part of American culture. So perhaps the most frustrating element of social change is generational differences. We have them now with this group called Gen Y, or the millennials. They're entering the labor force in large numbers. Observing the nearly maddening opinionation of the young is nothing new to the millennial generation. Just ask Oscar Wilde. I love this quote. The old believe everything, middle-aged suspect everything, the young know everything. You guys, everyone wants this slide, don't you? All right. So, see, my other favorite quote by Oscar Wilde, I'm not sure I should say from the stage because I'm divorced. He said that bigamy is having one wife too many and monogamy is the exact same thing. Okay? Can I get away with that? I don't know. I do like the quote, though. I mean, All right. Anyone not sure the millennials know everything just need to ask their kids to be assured that, yes, in fact, they do. Okay? But while prior generations, such as mine, were rebellious or impatient, millennials, in the wake of various economic turmoils and the influences of both the old and new media, are seen as cynical by some folks. You hear that in particularly in the HR press. There's been a lot, we have an HR publication. We have a nationally recognized workforce expert here with us tonight. So they're seen as cynical and they're seen as doubting. Disillusioned is the adjective that sticks out, as well as being highly cause-driven. But here's a quote for you on disillusionment. So this is from Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms. There are great parallels between the quote-unquote lost generation, okay, and the current millennials. The lost generation, they were the flappers in the Roaring '20s. They were hanging out in speakeasies, committed to leisure, and doubting the institutions and moral structures of society. The Roaring '20s youth, however, went on to survive the Depression. And with their children, the quote-unquote greatest generation fought and won World War II and spawned unparalleled prosperity for this nation. Until World War II, you don't hear anyone talking about America being the greatest nation on earth. That's really the seminal moment when it starts. So perhaps we're missing the enormous potential the millennials pose for the future just by the very nature that they see the world differently. That's a strength. Now, however, they have a different attitude toward leisure, and this has raised some new debates, I suppose new, maybe. I don't know, we'll see. Oh, wrong again, not new. So there you go, 1920, J.C. Dean in the Indianapolis Gazette decrying the most destructive social influence of their time and predicting its rejection. It was called the movies. J.C. did not get a job as a futurist at Harvard, by the way, okay? But into the post-industrial revolution, economy and leisure became available in the post-industrial economy. That's where it starts. And a raging social debate actually erupted about idle hands and the devil's work and stuff like that. So sometimes, through leisure, though, it can lead to innovation. Some would argue maybe even comfort. Widely reviled, the idea of leisure. A couple of guys messing around with some orange crates started the Lazy Boy Company in 1928. I think that's funny. Sometimes you have to laugh all these arguments off. Now, I'm not suggesting, and we all agree that corporations are a great force for social good, but I am not suggesting that we are not facing great challenges. We are, but they're not necessarily new challenges. Regardless of what you may hear in the political discourse or social commentary, we survived these same debates a century ago, and we'll survive them now. So when your team asks you what to do and the trends you need to address in the future, just stick with the good work you're doing now. And everyone in this room is doing amazing things. We're going to talk in detail about that in a little bit. Because whether you like it or not, we're probably going to have the same problems in the future. I want to talk a little bit about the leaders of distinction, the finalists of tonight. We're going to celebrate a group of executives that not only knows the right thing to do, but they've actually succeeded in the hard part, which is doing it. This year's nominees and winners are among the most dedicated and visionary leaders in the world of corporate responsibility and have demonstrated the passion and the drive needed to lead their organizations to be a beacon of good works and set an example for others. So in the presence of all these CEOs, what do you need to make your point? Those of you who report to the CEOs already know the answer to this question. You need data. Because no matter what you tell a CEO, they go, well, what's the data? So here's some data for you. From a study that we did, and here, this gives you some idea about the spiritual contribution CEOs play to corporate responsibility. 73% of employees, we did a survey of 995 workers, okay? 73% of the employees in this study from diverse economic and demographic backgrounds agreed that the role of the CEO in corporate responsibilities activities was very important to them, okay? That's just the facts. 3 out of 4 employees think that the CEO's personal involvement is critical to corporate responsibility. We also discovered that 81% of them wouldn't even take a job at a company with a bad reputation, okay? That's up from 69% just 4 years ago. So it's actually going up 12 points, the percentage of people who would just turn the job down. We think, and as we study this over time, we think that there is an inverse correlation between reputation and so we'll call the pickiness of employees and the unemployment rate. So as the unemployment rate is dropping, people are getting more and more selective. So you think about when unemployment really, gets to a low level, how critical your brand reputation is to the success of your enterprise. So, now the good news is everyone we're honoring tonight recognizes that the imperative for personal involvement and the need for leadership and vision in the area of organizational impact is theirs. So, we all have to share in our contribution to a better future. And in the lives of the C-suite, we all know too well that the demands are very high. And the greatest and most implacable foe is actually time. So leadership is about making choices, folks. We honor these CEOs tonight for making corporate responsibility a choice, a priority, and a culture. Everyone tonight has chosen to invest their precious time in making choices that positively impact the world today and the future. So let's explain the process. There were more than 50 inquiries that resulted in dozens of qualified nominees. 11 finalists were selected by CR Magazine with the help of some advisors, and a judging packet was sent to all the including all the finalists, were sent to former CR Magazine Responsible CEO of the Year winners. From the list of finalists, 3 winners were selected who we will announce tonight. I'd like to thank our judges for 2016, all of whom are prior CR Magazine Responsible CEO of the Year winners. So this is an unusual award because each year we sort of rotate the panel, but this is actually not awarded by CR Magazine. I want to make that clear. This is CEOs judging the good works of other CEOs. J.P. Bilbrey, the CEO of Hershey Company. William Cho, the President and CEO of LG Electronics USA. Marilyn Hewson, the CEO and President of Lockheed Martin. Gail Klappa, former CEO, Chairman, and Chief Executive Officer of Wisconsin Energy Corporation, or WEC Group. And the lovely Terry Ludwig, who's here tonight with us, the President and CEO of Enterprise Community Partners, Inc. So thank you to all of our judges. Each year, like I said, we review dozens of nominations. So tonight we're going to honor 3 of our guests as responsible CEOs of the year. Now we honor a multitude of CEOs because as we review nominations across industries and categories, there's different things that stand out, for-profit and non-profit businesses. The accomplishments are unique depending on the sector. So we need to recognize CEOs in a variety of areas of accomplishment and achievement who are advancing the cause and practice of corporate responsibility, and they need to be recognized for the positive impact on society. So we want to talk about the individual finalists. The short descriptions I'm about to give are in no way going to do justice to the breadth of achievements, so I'm only going to give a few highlights in the interest of time. And we do this alphabetically. First up, Manny Chirico. He's got some people here who think he's a favorite. Manny, your wife's not clapping. She's probably thinking, she's sort of thinking, he's going to be insufferable tonight when we go home, right? There you go. Manny has been with PVH for over 20 years and has served as CEO since 2006 and chairman since 2007. Under Manny's leadership, PVH has reduced and will eventually phase out hazardous chemicals from their supply chain by 2020. They're working toward zero materials to landfills. By the way, speaking of that, for those of you who were at the conference, we were able, shared expertise in commit forum, was able to successfully divert over 90% of the materials from this conference back to recycling with the help of waste management. That's a tribute to my event team and the wonderful work that they do, all right, because I'm the worst at that, right? I always say, no, in this bucket, sir, okay? They're working, they've reduced their emissions by reducing energy consumption. They've increased energy efficiency while utilizing clean energy. In addition, PVH has placed worker safety and workplace culture at the very cornerstone of their company. John Crow, President and CEO of Saint-Gobain and CertainTeed Corporation. John joined the Norton Company, which was later acquired by Saint-Gobain in 1978 as a process engineer in their materials business. Over the years, he held various positions of increasing responsibility in engineering, financial management, business development, marketing, and sales. Saint-Gobain has pledged to reduce energy consumption and greenhouse gas emissions of their service buildings by a factor of 4 by 2040 under their Care For program. They have also recently opened a brand new North American corporate headquarters, which I've had the pleasure of visiting, which achieved LEED Platinum certification for core and shell development and commercial interiors. It is an amazing building. Sori Kant, President and CEO, UK and Europe, Tata Consultancy Services. In his role as President of North America, UK and Europe, Sori is responsible for overseeing and strengthening the customer relationships and has really seen firsthand the impact of educational infrastructures in the many countries that TCS serves. And that's actually formed a passion in him. He's actively connected with various social causes, both personally and at the corporate level, most notably playing a leading role here in the U.S. supporting STEM education and careers, particularly focusing on opportunities for women and minorities. Though they do a lot on their own, they have some prominent partnerships with the likes of STEM Connector, US 2020, and NPower. Mike Lowry, Chairman and CEO of CSC Corporation. Under Mike's leadership, CSC has established a long-term progressive view of corporate responsibility, helping to redeem a brand battered by scandal prior to his tenure. CSC exceeded its original 10% global energy reduction target, actually achieved 14.6%, so they actually beat the target significantly. They've also achieved a target of sending zero electronic waste to landfills. If any of you know anything about sustainability, electronic waste is by far the most toxic, okay? I'd say Robert. I know him as Bob. Robert Moritz, Global Chairman and Senior Partner, PricewaterhouseCoopers. We miss Bob. He often attends this event, but he's a little busy lately. A few months ago, he was named he was the North American Chairman. He's now the Global Chairman of PricewaterhouseCoopers International. And Bob has championed, got a number of causes, enhanced promotion of diversity and inclusion efforts. He has also developed a pretty dramatic program for making sure that all viewpoints are represented and respected. They've developed a student loan payback assistance program, expanded parental leave, host of, and I mean just incredible employee volunteerism opportunities for PwC workers. Richard Knoll, Chairman and CEO, Hanes Brands. He's got fans in the room, I heard. Under Rich's leadership, Hanes Brands has become an industry leader in environmental responsibility and stewardship, and an international business leader in energy management. I mean, they've got some incredible statistics in the data that we got from Hanes Brands. Rich's personal direction has led Hanes Brands to establish an internal and environmental energy management practice within their business, setting challenging 5-year goals, besting the goals, and then reestablishing more aggressive goals for 2020. Christine Parich, Chief Executive Officer, New Belgium Brewing. It's unfortunate she didn't show up. She was going to bring the beer. Christine has made sustainability a core business strategy in New Belgium, best known for its Fat Tire beer brand. New Belgium has greatly reduced energy use. New Belgium has engaged in national advocacy through company-wide efforts to influence their communities toward greater ecological care. So they not only do what they do within the plant, they work with the surrounding communities to develop best practices as a community. New Belgium's work has changed national legislation, influenced local water sources, and changed the way they use resources. They now generate 12% of their own energy, and they divert 99% of their water away from landfills. As they say, they're making, this is a bit of an ad, guys, they're making better beer with less water thanks to smart technology. So good for them. Richard Shadiak, President and CEO of Alsac St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. I know you got some fans here too, I guess. So Rick was named the President and CEO of Alsac in September 2009. Rick has led the nonprofit organization to record-breaking achievements, guiding strategic efforts that have increased fundraising levels by nearly 30% since the start of his tenure in 2009. Now, just remember, I just said 2009, okay? Anyone remember how their 401k looked in 2009, okay? In the midst of that economic turmoil, he was able to actually raise fundraising. And there was a tremendous dip, as many of you remember, in charitable giving at that time because of the Great Recession. So on behalf of Alsac and St. Jude, he's on the road speaking at fundraising events for more than half of the year. Last year, for example, and I got this from your team, Rick, he attended 184 individual fundraising events. Okay, that's amazing. Okay. He also achieved the American Airlines, they've got the chairman level. He's got rock star. David Steiner, President and CEO, Waste Management. David was elected President and CEO of Waste Management in March 2004, and in 2007 worked with the company's leaders to develop 4 ambitious sustainability goals to achieve by 2020. The goals are as follows: process more than 20 million tons of recycling, increase fleet efficiency, because they have all those trucks running around, by 15% and reduce emissions by 15%, set aside 25,000 acres for conservation of wildlife habitats through their efforts, and through waste-based, you can't say that too easily, waste-based energy production, produce enough electricity to power more than 2 million homes. They've actually done these, by the way. Okay, just think about that. So they've actually, through cogeneration, taken the waste and actually converted it to energy that could power 2 million homes. John Strangfeld, Chairman and CEO of Prudential Financial. For many years, John has been a passionate advocate for many issues. Most notably, we're going to talk about Prudential's programs, at least this evening, for veterans and veterans re-entering the workforce, an issue I'm passionate about, because I did a terrible job of doing that. They developed an entire program and a recognition really of the role Prudential could play in helping veterans transition. So in 2005, he initiated a scholarship program for military officers seeking transition into leadership, and they did this by essentially giving them scholarships to attend the MBA program at the Darden Business School. And they continue to sponsor that program to this day, as well as a host of many other programs. They established their own internal Office of Veterans Initiatives with a mission to help solve and change the parameters by which veterans enter the civilian workforce. Mark Wilson, Group Chief Executive Officer, Aviva. Aviva is a British-based financial services company, for those of you who may not be familiar. Mark became Group CEO of Aviva in 2013. Under Mark's leadership, Aviva has put in place a 5-pillar strategic response to climate change. Now, we keep hearing a lot, I'm sure we had tonight the third presidential debate. Damn, I keep doing that. Anyway, so, we keep hearing a lot about climate change, all right? So I want to set the record straight from the podium. Climate change is happening, okay? There is no debate about climate change. The only debate that exists, and I'm the president of a magazine that focuses on sustainability, is about whether it's man-made, okay? And there is a significant debate that could be had or not had. There's no debate, it's happening. So the issue of whether it's man-made or not, you know what I say as the head of Corporate Responsibility magazine, and please feel free to tweet this out, I just don't care. To the extent the world is getting warmer, can we just all try to do as much as we can to make sure we're not contributing to it? Can we just agree to try to do better? All right, why does it matter whether it's man-made or not? Let's just be more conscious of the world we live in. So, this is what Viva is doing about climate change. They're integrating climate risk into their investment considerations, I think is great. They're investing in lower carbon infrastructure. They're supporting strong policy action on climate change, active stewardship on climate risk, and they're divesting, okay, which a lot of investment funds won't do when they feel it's necessary. So these are our finalists. Big round of applause for the group. So I hope you all enjoyed the entree. I want to also assure you that this hotel locally sources the food. We asked them, they said, do you locally source the food? They said, yeah, Brooklyn. No, they didn't. They locally sourced the food that we ate in our meal tonight, and we verify these things prior to contracting with them. This is also, this dinner has been a zero waste event courtesy of Waste Management. And of course, when I reference zero waste, I hopefully am talking about recycling, not some of the conversations you may have had with me. So let's get to the business at hand, honoring the 2016 CR Magazine Responsible CEOs of the Year. Our first 2016 CR Magazine CEO of the Year this evening is from the nonprofit sector. Rick Shadyac, President and CEO of ALSAC, St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. We have a brief video to play from St. Jude's, but first let me make a few comments. Rick Shadyac was literally born into this job. While St. Jude's is one of the most recognized brands in the healthcare and philanthropic sectors, it is only a bit more than 60 years old. A lot of people don't know that. Okay, so you may know some of the story. The late great entertainer Danny Thomas, a Lebanese American, went out looking for early supporters and networked through his ethnic community to Rick Shadyac's father, Richard Shadyac Sr. As an early supporter of the hospital and a board member, the elder Mr. Shadyac became CEO of ALSAC, the fundraising arm of St. Jude's, stepped down in 2005 and was succeeded by a new CEO. During the tenure of the new CEO, Rick Shadyac, who was then a partner in a very large Washington, D.C. law firm, prominent law firm, was elected the chairman of the board. Okay. In 2009, when that CEO, who was between him and his father, stepped down, Rick stepped up and assumed the role of CEO, packing up his family, moving to Tennessee, and leaving his lucrative legal career behind to become a leader of the organization that he told me has been a passion and a defining highlight for his father, himself, and his entire family. After the video, we'll have some remarks and a presentation from a special guest who shares his passion and has known him for all of her life and been in a unique position to observe his behavior. I'd like to welcome Corey Shadyac to the stage, his daughter, and the regional director of ALSAC St. Jude's Research Hospital in Seattle. We're going to play the video, and after that, Corey will say a few words.
I hope people know just what an excellent human being Rick Shadyac is. He's committed in ways that's been an absolute shining example to all of us.
He's like a grand uncle for all of us.
Just being around him, you don't even really have to talk to him. He just makes you feel better.
The thing I'm most proud of is influencing and having an effect on the lives of kids and families that have been dealt that horrible card of finding out that their child has cancer or some devastating disease. It starts with a mission. We have a mission like no one else.
Good evening. I feel blessed to call one man my mentor, my fiercest debate partner, and my role model, my dad. Tonight, as Mr. Clark said, CR Magazine honors leaders who make corporate responsibility a choice, priority, and culture. And I'm thrilled that you have the opportunity to see and celebrate what I see every day in my dad. My dad was a distinguished and formidable attorney in Washington, D.C., but it was not until he made the choice to deepen his commitment to ALSAC, the fundraising organization that supports St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, that he found his true calling. My dad and I share a favorite author, Khalil Gibran, who once said that work is love made visible. For my dad, his work at ALSAC is really about love. Love for the incredible kids at St. Jude who remind him that each day is precious and should be filled with joy. Love for his ALSAC team who make his vision for St. Jude and the city of Memphis come to life every day. And love for the American people who have embraced Danny Thomas's dream that one day no child will die in the dawn of life. My father's love for his work is rooted in the mission of St. Jude and has extended to the hospital's local community of Memphis, Tennessee. Through his choice to take the leap of faith to lead ALSAC, he has inspired more than 1,300 employees to embrace his example of servant leadership in their local communities. At ALSAC's 2014 National Training Meeting, my father appealed to the ALSAC team to do more to make their communities a better place for people to live and work, instilling social responsibility as an organizational priority. Empowered by my dad's vision and leadership, ALSAC employees in Memphis and across the country started tutoring students, holding drives for local food pantries, staffing homeless shelters, serving on nonprofit boards, and cleaning up neighborhoods. Last year, ALSAC employees performed more than 22,000 hours of community service through more than 300 activities benefiting 100 organizations. Additionally, community service became a key component of ALSAC's national training meeting. Last year, ALSAC employees assembled 1,000 toiletry bags to help the homeless at Memphis Union Mission, stuffed 1,000 backpacks of school supplies for students in need at 2 local high schools, and saved public school teachers 300 hours in labor by creating packets of flashcards for use in daily instruction. Despite his rigorous year-round travel schedule that you heard about, no job is too small for my dad. Always thinking of others, you will find him picking up trash on the St. Jude campus after the walk-run to end childhood cancer, playing bingo with patient families at St. Jude housing facilities, or distributing homemade meals to homeless Memphians. The ALSAC culture of social responsibility really is an extension of my father's upbringing, during which my grandparents instilled a strong sense of community and family. I grew up thinking everyone was related to the Shadyacs. Everyone was introduced as my aunt, uncle, or cousin, despite my dad only having one biological brother. So as my family has grown to include many honorary Shadyacs, including St. Jude patients, ALSAC employees, and Memphians, my father stands as the patriarch and leader. He built on the legacy of my grandfather, who also served as the CEO of ALSAC, nurturing an ALSAC family that cares for one another and cares for its community. 2 months ago, I joined the ALSAC family, and I am so honored to be part of the same organization that my dad has dedicated his life to grow. As the 3rd generation Shadyac to serve the kids of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, I am proud to build on the incredible legacy of my grandfather and father and seek to follow in their example of servant leadership. I feel privileged to share my father with the kids of St. Jude, with their families, with the ALSAC team, with the city of Memphis, and now with you all tonight. So here's to my dad, Rick Shadiak.
It's hard to follow your own daughter. So, Corey, I want to thank you for that incredibly kind introduction. And I'm joined here by my wife of 34 years, and Ann, and my son Tim, and many of my ALSAC colleagues, along with the chairman of our board at ALSAC. And, I want to thank CR Magazine for this award. I'm deeply humbled to accept this on behalf of the 1,300 members of my ALSAC team. And, I want to congratulate all the other honorees here tonight. I really am truly humbled. Corey told you, I was fortunate to be able to grow up around the St. Jude mission. And I heard many, many stories from my father and from my mother. And I'm most proud to see the way our mission has progressed through time. And, right now, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital leads the way the world understands, treats, and defeats childhood cancer. It's the place where doctors from all across the world, but in particular the United States, send some of their most difficult cases because we have the highest survival rates for some of the most challenging diseases. And, we've remained true for 54 years to the foundational promise that our founder made, that no family would ever receive a bill from St. Jude, not for the cost of treatment, travel, housing, or food, because all we want our moms and dads to worry about are helping their child live. But folks, it wasn't always like that. In 1962, when we opened our doors, the survival rate for the most common form of childhood cancer was 4%. 96 out of 100 people that would be diagnosed would perish, and perish quickly. Yet that was the very disease that Danny Thomas and our founders decided to tackle. And due in large part to the research and treatment conducted at St. Jude today, that survival rate for that incurable disease is 94%. It's truly remarkable. I was deeply inspired by my father and my mother. And I'm going to just share one or two quick stories with you. My dad didn't know Danny Thomas. My dad was a Department of Justice lawyer in Washington, D.C. when he was approached by Danny Thomas for one simple reason, because he shared the same heritage. We're proudly Lebanese Americans. Danny Thomas was Lebanese, a Lebanese American. My dad was asked to show up in a bowling alley in Washington, D.C. and to bring a couple of friends that shared his heritage. And Danny pitched this crazy idea in the 50s that they were going to build a children's hospital to treat catastrophically ill kids. They were going to treat them without regard to race, creed, religion, or ability to pay. They were going to put this hospital in Memphis, Tennessee, a segregated city. And my father, who had no connection to Memphis, Tennessee, really just asked one question. He said, "Sir, why are we going to do this?" And Mr. Thomas looked at him and said, "Dick, we're going to do this for two reasons. To say thank you to God and to the United States of America for giving our parents, my grandparents, the opportunity to come to this country and to make a living." And that's when he formed in 1957 ALSAC, the organization that I have the privilege of leading, American Lebanese Syrian Associated Charities, which exists solely to raise the money to operate St. Jude and to create the awareness. As Corey told you, we grew up learning about kids at St. Jude all the time. And, I used to feel like they were my brothers and sisters, and now I know what my father and my mother were talking about. And, I have the privilege of being inspired every single day to demonstrate corporate social responsibility because of the amazing kids that I get to meet. Like my friend Markel, a young man from Louisiana who came to us with osteosarcoma or bone cancer. He came from very, very modest family in a very small town in Louisiana, and he had a horrible disease. And the first time I met this young man, he was getting ready for an amputation because his disease was very progressed before he had gotten to St. Jude. And I sat with him literally the day before he was to have his leg amputated, and he told me about how he felt. And we became friends over time, and he was one of our greatest champions at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. He was truly a star. He appeared on the NFL Today. He appeared in many of our national television commercials. It was just a few months ago when I was leaving work late one evening, and it struck me that I should go visit him because he was really, really struggling. And I knew he was in the ICU, and I dropped by the ICU to say hi to my bud. And I walked in, and here's this young man hooked up to more pieces of equipment than any of us adults would ever even imagine. And he looked at me, very weak, and he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, I came to see you." He said, "Didn't you see the sign on the door?" And I said, "No, Markel, I didn't see the sign on the door. It says no visitors." And I said, "Sorry, man, I apologize." And he looked at me and he said, "No, you're cool. You're cool. That's to keep all my fans away." And then Markel looked at me and he said, "Did you hear the good news?" And I said, "No, Markel, I didn't hear the good news, and I was praying that it was going to be health news." And he looked over at his mother and he said, "Mom, tell Richard," he called me Richard, "the good news." And Markel's mother said, "No, Markel, you tell Mr. Shadyac the good news." And Markel looked at me and he said, "I graduated from high school. I graduated from high school." You see, this 16-year-old boy was so proud that he had graduated from high school. Doesn't sound like a huge achievement, maybe to many of you overachieving people in this room, but to a person battling cancer that had had an amputation, multiple rounds of chemotherapy, radiation, lost his hair more time than we could ever count, knowing that his days were probably numbered, he was incredibly proud that he had battled cancer and still graduated from high school, because we have a school at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. And I looked at him and I said, "Markel, I couldn't be prouder of you. Look at your mom and your dad. They're so proud of you. We have to have a party." And he goes, "Oh man, that would be great." And I said, "I got to get you a high school ring because you deserve a high school graduation ring." And unfortunately, Markel went into a coma after that. But as God is my judge, he snapped out of it one day quickly, and we were able to put together a party to celebrate for him. I couldn't get that high school ring to him in time, even though we went to one of our corporate partners to try to have it be made. But then a week after that, Markel passed away, but he had that party. And his mom and his dad asked me to travel to Louisiana, and my wife and I did that to say a few words, to eulogize him. And I did. And I was able to bring that high school ring and to present it to his mother at his funeral. You know, his funeral actually wasn't as sad as you might think, because he was surrounded by many of his fellow high school kids in Louisiana who were rallying to support him by honoring him to raise money for pediatric cancer research. And folks, I tell you that story not to depress you, but to inspire you, because that's what that young man did for me and does for me every single day. That's what he did for all of his fellow classmates. He inspired them to try to do good. You know, Markel also got a chance to live out a dream. He often talked to me that his dream was to graduate from high school. And because of the support of the public, he was able to continue his education while he was at St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. The public allows kids like that to be able to realize their dreams. That's the beauty of the mission that I get to serve. But you know, we weren't satisfied at ALSAC just with serving our mission in that way, and we serve the best mission on the planet. I challenge my employees, who are absolutely incredible, to go one step further, and that's to make a difference in our community. And you know, we live in a city It's a fabulous city, and I welcome all of you to come visit St. Jude Children's Research Hospital in Memphis, but it's economically challenged. It's got one of the lowest per capita incomes in the United States. Within a mile of St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, families live in poverty. And I knew we could make a difference. And as Corey told you, our ALSAC staff rallied, and we've performed over 22,000 volunteer hours in our community, touching literally thousands of additional lives. And I'm so proud of my team for embracing that on top of all of the long hours that they pull. And I am deeply humbled, truly, to be able to accept this award in front of all of you that have committed your whole professional lives to serving others. I want to just end by saying this. You know, I don't share the notion that the world is going to fall off a cliff or that the world is full of malaise and things are bad. I see nothing but amazing things, great things in people and in my fellow Americans, 9 million of which embrace the St. Jude mission every single day by either donating to our mission or volunteering to our cause, so that we're able to provide the best health care on the planet to these kids that are stricken with still the leading cause of death by disease in U.S. kids today. They rally to support those kids, and also so that St. Jude Children's Research Hospital can continue to be the leading private funder of pediatric cancer research in the world, second only to our federal government. So folks, as leaders, I want to challenge all of you. Get uncomfortable. Truly embrace this whole notion of corporate social responsibility. I'm a big fan of Dr. Martin Luther King, and I always say this to my employees. He had a great quote. Life's most compelling and urgent question is, what are you doing for others? That's what drives all of us at ALSAC and St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. God bless, and thank you all very, very much.
Yeah, I messed myself up tonight by trying to follow that, okay? I'm going to talk about setting the agenda wrong. There's just no way for me to come back from that. So, congratulations to Rick and Mrs. Shadiak, who is obviously the power behind the throne, and, you know, the entire ALSAC team. You know, of all the medical miracles, Rick, this occurred to me from St. Jude's, the least known is that this institution cured you of being a lawyer. Wow. That's a miracle. All right, there we go. So moving on with political incorrectness. In 1981, Brooke Shields' controversial advertisement should have said that nothing between her and her Calvin Kleins other than Hanes underwear. All right, come on, Manny. You didn't even own the company till 2002, all right, dude? All right? But since we're talking about Hanes brands, it's my distinct pleasure to announce the next CR Magazine CEO of the Year, Responsible CEO of the Year award winner is Richard Knoll, Chairman and CEO of Hanes Brands. Now, before we play the video, I'd like to offer a few comments. Richard Knoll oversees a company that has 70,000 employees globally. Now, Hanes manufactures 80% of their product and manages it through their own supply chain. The company has done an amazing job, and please visit their corporate responsibility site and take a look at it. Amazing job of managing down energy costs by analyzing energy usage. And Rick's a CEO, right? So he's all about numbers, right? So he's like, we figured out the metric we needed to use was energy usage per pound of product. Just think about it. No one else did that. I think you guys were the first. And doing that, they reduced energy usage. You think about the span of this enterprise, they reduced energy usage per pound by 24% in 7 years. They've done the same with water usage, okay? It's important to Rich Knoll as well to standardize the quality of the work environments globally, so the workforce gets the same metrics and best practices, whether they work in Bangladesh, Egypt, or El Salvador, okay? They are highly committed to the communities in which they operate. Here are a few highlights of his leadership. He mandated that Haynes become part of the Carbon Disclosure Project. The company set 5-year goals and exceeded them and set more rigorous goals for 2020. They constructed their own biomass facility to generate steam for plant usage and energy. They've reduced their carbon footprint for that plant in the Dominican Republic by a whopping 95%. In fact, 23 of their plants received the US EPA's Energy Star Award, reducing energy more than 10%. Nearly all of their water is recycled back to the environment, and the list goes on, folks. I just want to say before we roll tape on the video that Rich was talking earlier, rather. We got Rich, it's hard for me up here. I just want to feel for me, okay? So Rich was talking earlier, and he made one of the most humble comments I've heard a CEO make. He was asked a question about legacy by our editorial director, Debbie Bola. Immediately responded, that's something that someone asks old people, which, by the way, I thought that was an appropriate take on going after her for that one. But what he said was that he wanted his legacy to be more about what happened after he left than what he accomplished while he was there. Because that would really be the telling point of the culture that he created. I thought that was just an amazing response. So we're going to roll a short video from Haynes about their CR program and Richard Knoll.
Haynes Brands is a world-class consumer goods company with a strong reputation for conducting business around the world in a highly ethical and socially responsible manner. When it comes to doing the right thing, Haynes Brands is about people, thousands of us from all over the world. Every decision we make, every action we take contributes to our reputation for how we do business.
Please help me welcome Rich Knoll to the stage.
So I'd just like to say a few things. First of all, I have been following Rick all day, and it is not an easy job. So somebody asked him what his legacy, what he wanted his legacy to be, and it was about taking the cancer survival rate around the world from 20 to 50%. And then he said, "Okay, Rich, what about you?" And I said, I just want to help him. More to the point, I feel very honored to receive this award, but it's not about me. It is about what our 70,000 employees do around the world each and every day. As a CEO, I don't really do anything. What I do is I try and excite people and I set goals, and they're the one that accomplish great things. And we have the greatest group of people, and that's why you see such great things being accomplished by Haynes Brands. And I want to thank all of you for honoring those employees because they really deserve a great round of applause. Thank you very much.
All right, I will point out that we did something a little different this year with the awards themselves. So last year we gave out nice crystal awards. Terry got one. I mean, I'm sure it's probably in your car right now. Yeah, it's displayed. It takes with her everywhere. This year we did it out of recycled wood because we thought it was important that we sort of eat our own dog food in a sense. We know that it's hard to give a bunch of people that run recycling programs the size of the folks who win here, something that's not recycled. So we thought that was appropriate with the brand. We're at our final honoree. To take part in that, I'd like to invite Terry Ludwig, President and CEO of Enterprise Community Partners. Enterprise Community Partners, by the way, is one of the largest providers of housing to low-income families. And what they do is they actually have, it's a nonprofit. They have a partnership with many, federal and state agencies, but they operate as a real estate investment trust, like an investment fund. It's a really, really unique model, and I encourage you to check it out or talk to Terry if you get a chance. She is a 2015 CR Magazine Responsible CEO of the Year winner. I'd like to invite Terry Ludwig to the stage.
Thank you, Elliot. Thanks a lot for that introduction. It's always so nice to be among such fabulous folks that are dedicated to corporate responsibility. So it's such an honor to be here. And it is absolutely an honor to be passing the torch to one of this year's winners. The 2016 CR Magazine CEO of the Year Lifetime Achievement Award winner is Manny Chirico. And Manny is the chairman and Chief Executive Officer of PVH Corporation. And Manny Chirico has been at PVH for quite some time, since 1993. And far as I can tell, he's occupied a lot of C-suite area. So he's been CEO, COO, and CFO. And PVH is a company with about 30,000 employees, but with more than 1 million people within their supply chain. So incredible reach that PVH has. And I'd like to take a minute just to recognize some of the ways in which PVH has been a model corporate citizen over the years, with Manny at the helm. First, the firm's commitment to human rights extends back to 1991, when PVH created a partner code of conduct, which was a commitment that all of PVH's business partners would maintain responsible business standards according to shared social and environmental values. In 1999, they were a founding member of the Fair Labor Association and were the first company to commit to the Accord on Fire and Building Safety in Bangladesh. They created PVH University, which not only instructs on job content, but also stresses the importance of diversity and inclusion. They are a signatory to the UN's Women Empowerment Principles as part of the UN Global Compact. In 2013, they joined the Zero Discharge of Hazardous Chemicals program with a commitment that they will eliminate all hazardous chemicals from their supply chain by the year 2030. So PVH has also implemented plans to reduce greenhouse gas emissions across 43 countries and 1,700 plants in their supply chain by training their partners in sound environmental practices and by joining the Better Cotton Initiative that was started by Tommy Hilfiger, in which they bought over 4,200 tons of cotton grown in a way that substantially eases impact on the environment. And under Manny's leadership, support for our local communities has also been central to their program. Manny took part in a White House program where he urged the other business leaders on the importance of early childhood education, and PVH is also one of the largest donors to Save the Children, a fantastic charity where Manny serves on the board, last year raising over $5 million. Now, we're going to see a video from PVH about Manny and their great CR effort.
PVH Corp is proud to nominate Manny Chirico for CR Magazine's 2016 Responsible CEO of the Year. Manny is the driving force behind our vision to empower people, preserve the environment, and support communities all the way from source to store.
As the world changes, we believe that CR will continue to be a key competitive advantage as we strive to deliver future growth and stockholder value.
By demonstrating strong leadership and encouraging his leaders to inspire change, he is realizing our vision to make positive impacts across our business and beyond.
So before I bring Manny to the stage, I just wanted to say that as someone who had the privilege of kind of passing this torch and also had the opportunity to read all the wonderful applications and the incredible commitment, I just want to say, Manny, I was so struck by what you've accomplished, your personal leadership, and it was amazing tonight. Manny actually said, look, if you want to roast me, go ahead. And I said, I don't know him well enough to roast him, but maybe next year. But I have to say, just your humor, your humility, and your incredible achievements really inspire us all. So thank you so much, and we'd like to welcome you to the stage. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Well, I guess first I'm thankful that I didn't have to follow Rick. First I'd like to congratulate Rick, a fantastic organization. I really was touched by everything he had to say. And I'd also like to congratulate Rich. I think it says something about our industry that both of us, being part of the apparel industry, an industry that has had a reputation for not necessarily being the most corporately responsible, has really made a giant step. So it's really an honor to be being honored along with you. Thank you. I think CEOs tend to get too much credit for success. When you really think about it, and if you listen to what Terry said, you heard we signed a number of these initiatives. My job was basically signing the initiatives, and then it was the responsibility of our teams to go out there and make sure we stood up to the goals. We have 35,000 employees around the world. That what I tell them when I get in front of them and speak, I tell them is we're a public company. Our first and primary responsibility is to return value to our shareholders. But we've got to be measured by more than just our bottom line or our balance sheet. It's about how we conduct business around the world, the kind of impact we have on employees, on our employees around the world, the million people that we touch in our supply chain, trying to make their lives better, trying to develop economies around the world that are in the development stage and evolve them where they can become consuming economies, where they can purchase our goods. To build a business case around CR, I think is critical for companies to really have a case to go forward with these initiatives. I'm really humbled. I'm really proud of receiving this award. I'm humbled by it. I accept it on behalf of the 35,000 employees at PVH. It would be remiss of me if I didn't mention my family. My wife is here tonight, Joanne. She's always there for me. My two sons are here, Dominic and Vincent. Thank you very much, guys. They are I couldn't be prouder of you. And in closing, I'd just like to say, I think corporations can have a major impact on the life of people around the world. And we need to be more than just our profits, and we need to have a commitment to CR. And I really want to commend CR Magazine for putting a spotlight on this issue. Thank you all, and everybody have a good night. Thank you.
We're done. No. All right, so, and honestly, I do want to, it was very clear to us that Joanne Chirico is really the talent at the table over there. So it was very clear by the end of the evening, and you will, and we've got the Shadiak family here, and members of the board, and so many team members from Hanes Brands. And I'll say as a CEO, I want my team to stand up, take some applause from my team. We run around all day handing people notes saying, could you take care of this, please? Right? So the only thing that CEOs really get to transfer, because we're not really good at doing anything anymore. Like, we really don't. We don't do anything. We just get other people to do it in a sense. So the only thing that we're really good at is creating ideas and making sure that people believe in them and getting them passionate about it. You know, one of the best parts of my job is getting to know and being inspired by the kind of leaders who are in this room. So I want to thank all of you for attending. I want to thank you all for your support for corporate responsibility as a concept and CR Magazine as an entity. We've honored some great achievers in corporate responsibility. We shared a bit of ourselves with each other tonight. And I hope we shared some great examples of excellence, and I know we did. I hope you had some ideas about how to improve programs of your own, because that's what we're about, best practice sharing, that's our goal. So I'd like to once again thank our sponsors, Ames Brands, Mosaic Corporation, PVH Corporation, Alsac St. Jude Children's Research Hospital, and the Corporate Responsibility Association. Good night. It's 9 o'clock. There's something going on in Vegas. I look forward to seeing all of you next week.